Building a direct-to-consumer agricultural business is no easy task. There is a reason the vast majority of farmers grow for the commodity system, but it is possible, even with a product as simple as the humble dry bean.
Here in Napa, everybody has a wine club. And I'm thinking, it would be so idiotic. Let's do a bean club. So it started, with a couple people, and right now we're at 30,000 members. So 4 times a year, we send out 30,000 boxes.
Steve Sando is the founder of Rancho Gordo. You heard him right. His direct-to-consumer bean club has 30,000 members. Oh, and there are also an additional 35,000 people that are on the wait list to try to get into that club.
I think, what would a bean freak get really excited about? I want them to open it and start smiling and think about all the dishes they're going to make, which is me. So I really try and market to myself. What would I want?
It's an incredible story of creating raving fans for a niche product line and creating value with a founder's taste, some genius marketing, and a stronger connection to food and community.
The big guys determine what we should use, but I think the real money is in finding out what is really great and appeal to foodies rather than commodity people.
Rancho Gordo's Steve Sando on today's Future of Agriculture podcast. Hello, fellow Ag Nerd. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Future of Agriculture. My name is Tim Hamrich, and if you're interested in where innovative ideas meet practical realities in food production, I think you found the right show. Today's episode really is a treat for me. Some of you know I grew up on a small farm in Northern California that sold livestock, poultry, and pumpkins directly to consumers. Then most of my career has been spent in large-scale commodity agriculture, which is why I've always been interested in how e-commerce can be used to scale a direct-to-consumer business model. Admittedly, there aren't a ton of great examples of this, but we have one for you today here in Steve Sando of Rancho Gordo. I should also mention, because many of you probably don't know this, that I myself am a bit of an avid bean freak, as Steve calls them. I just think the nutritional properties and the flavor and the diversity make beans just an amazing food. In fact, I host the Growing Pulse Crops podcast that focuses on mostly peas, chickpeas, and lentils, but also dry edible beans as well. I put all the pulses together on that. But anyway, so this is just hitting on interests of mine on a number of levels, because 25 years ago, Steve Sando started growing heirloom beans and just selling a few at his local farmer's market. And that led to some conversations and eventually the realization that he could build a business by, as he says, imposing his taste for heirloom beans on other people. That has grown by leaps and bounds. And I think you're really going to be blown away by the success of his company, Rancho Gordo, which sources these heirloom beans from farmers that they partner with, mostly in California, but also along the West Coast and then some down in Mexico as well. Today's episode offers a ton of lessons about finding true fans and creating value and building a thriving business by surprising and delighting your true fans time and time again. I really enjoyed this conversation with Steve Sando of Rancho Gordo.
I had no gardening or certainly no ag experience and no gardening experience. And I turned 40 and thought, you are somewhat of a screw up about myself, and that you should just get a little garden and everything was going to be okay. And I actually was right. I just instinctively knew the garden would be great. So I started out doing, here in the Bay Area, everyone does early growth tomatoes and just conventional vegetables, but something in me wanted to do heirloom tomatoes. And I thought, I'm really good at this. And tasting the heirlooms versus conventional tomatoes. And this was in Napa in 1999, 2000. The tomatoes were from Holland in a hothouse in August. I thought, this just doesn't make any sense. They were horrible. And, they were wrapped in plastic in a clamshell kind of thing. And so I grew my own, and I erroneously felt I had a gift for farming or gardening even, but it's Napa in one of those years where anybody can grow anything. And I started selling them at the farmers markets. And there wasn't like a huge success, but I realized in order to have something to carry me through, I need to do something that will, because the farmers markets open in May, and your tomatoes in Napa don't really ripen until late July or August if you're lucky. So I thought, oh, I'll do beans. And so I did beans. And I remember I joined the Seed Savers Exchange because I don't tend to do things too casually. So if I'm going to do it, I go all in. So I became very involved with Seed Savers Exchange, got heirloom beans, and I just kind of freaked out at how completely delicious they were. Also, how here in the Napa, we know every obscure Italian valley, every French region for wine, and yet we don't even know the beans, which really are our own food. I mean, they're from the Americas. So that's where I thought, oh, this is really pretty amazing. And I could be altruistic and say I want people to eat beans, I want to be healthy, but really I love imposing my taste on other people. It's really my gift. And it's like, these are incredible and we don't even know about them. So that's what I'm going to do. And that's how I got started in the whole thing. And it's just only snowballed. And I think early on, I got just enough encouragement from just the right people that helped me to carry through.
Yeah, I want to talk more about your taste because I do think that is so foundational to the tremendous success of Rancho Gordo. But before we do, I've grown beans in my backyard, in my little garden, and I can get like a handful or a small container. How did you grow enough beans yourself to even find out this was a thing?
Well, I had luckily an acre that was irrigated and I could do a lot, but I recognized immediately I can't do this. I have to find a farmer to do this, a real farmer. And it was not easy because a lot of them are trained, in the UC system where your self-worth is equal to the number of pounds you produce per acre. And I'm like, well, what difference does it make how many pounds if we're charging more for the same product and it's a better product? That seems like a better thing, but that really wasn't. I don't know now what's going on with UC, but at that time, that really was, these UC trained farmers really preferred, well, you don't get the same yields with an heirloom that you would with a conventional bean. So that was the hard part, finding the farmers. So it was a risk for everybody.
I bet. So, but I mean, I imagine you were able to strike up a good partnership because I think the reason for that thinking a lot of times is the farmers have been burned by starting to grow something and then whoever they're selling it to just tries to get the price down as low as possible. So the only thing saving them is like higher yield. So it must be a true partnership in your case.
It is, and it's still hard because the farmers have been screwed over and over. We started a program where we would guarantee a certain amount per acre, but that actually didn't work because the farmer's like, well, why should I bother? I know I'm going to get this much money. So it's a constant striking of relationships with great farmers. And we're still mostly in California, some up north in Washington and Oregon, and then we have a few in Mexico, but that's kind of a different project altogether. People think we grow in Mexico because it's cheaper. And it's like, it's actually, those beans are more expensive. And I'm really pro California ag. So I really do my best to keep things here.
Yeah, I think I read or saw maybe another interview of yours where you're saying that you do have the project in Mexico, but that is only like 15 or 20% of your beans overall. Most of them are grown in the U.S.
Yeah, it's sort of the most fun. So I tend to spend the most time on that. But yeah, it is a very small part of it.
But that's where a lot of these varieties originated, right? Was in Mexico?
Yes. And so I would, on my holidays, go to Mexican markets and try and get beans. And beans are seeds. And you can bring them in legally. You can't corn, by the way. I've discovered they confiscate your corn at the border, at the airport or wherever. But beans are fine because I think they don't recognize them as seed. So it's not such an issue, I guess. I don't know. But I would go down there and I would, try and strike deals because I need to get it up for seed. And I didn't understand this was completely offensive to an indigenous farmer because that's all he has is his seed. And so we started this program, the Rancho Gordo Shashak Project, to actually buy production from these small farms, mostly by indigenous farmers. And for me, selfishly, I get these incredible beans. A farmer in Jalisco can't go to Mexico City with his beans because it's like, we don't need those here. Or they can't even go next door to Michoacan. They'll say, well, that's not the kind of bean. We don't want those. So there's a real limited market, whereas we don't have the cultural baggage. And we're like, oh, cool, a new bean to try. So it works out for everybody.
That's fascinating. I wonder, is that quality, I don't want to say it's unique to America, but it is obviously not the same everywhere. So I wonder if your business could work in other countries or if there is that sort of like, well, no, that's not the type of food we eat. Is it uniquely American to want to eat everyone else's food, I guess?
Yeah, I think our food culture was completely obliterated. And so now we're rebuilding it. Whereas Mexico, Italy, France, they understand what their food culture is, I think. So we're redefining it. And, I'm just jumping way ahead, but everyone's talking about, beans are having their moment or beans are hip right now. It's like, I hate that. No, I want beans to be part of the way we eat, not this week's flavor. So I think incorporating beans into the way we eat is a much more admirable goal than just making it trendy for hipsters this week.
But so these are heirloom beans. Maybe a good question first before I ask this next question is there a technical definition for heirloom?
It would be older. It would be self-pollinating. Yeah, and it's being bred for flavor or sometimes looks rather than yield is what I would say. But some of them yield really great. And originally we had 2 farmers and they were growing everything for us and they were very frustrated. And then suddenly now we work with a lot of farmers and each one grows what they do best. Like we find what's best in that region. And on Mount Veeder, where I live, it's about 1,700 feet up, which isn't huge, but it's something. And because it's a mountain, there's a lot of shadows and we get cooler nights. I have a runner bean that I got in Oaxaca in my test garden, and it grows. Even when we had snow here a couple of years ago, it survived the snow. It's amazing. It takes forever, but so you just have to find the bean that's right for your area, is what I would say.
And I imagine those farmers they're growing on a large scale, so they're growing with, they're harvesting with combines and that sort of thing. They're full scale farming it.
Yeah, and the yield's fine, and we pay more per pound, so it's not like it's a charity situation for them.
Can you still improve on the genetics of an heirloom variety and it still be heirloom is kind of what I'm getting at. If you wanted to increase the yield so that it's viable for a farmer to farm it, or if you're like, if this was just a little bigger, it would be a lot more marketable. Or when do we get out of the heirloom realm?
I'm not such a purist, but I think it'd be fine. I mean, just growing it where it grows best alone, you're making a decision. Beans don't cross. Well, Phaseolus vulgaris, common beans, don't cross easily. The runner beans actually do cross pretty easily, so you do have to keep them separate. But I'm not too worried about it. That makes sense. So with the heirloom, if you plant it, you'll get the same plant. I mean, that's really key, is what I'd say.
I think I'm going to ask you to kind of brag on the company a little bit, if you don't mind, just to give listeners who have never heard of Rancho Gordo, give them a sense of kind of, you started with your 1 acre growing dry beans, taking them to the farmer's market, and now what's the company look like today?
Well, we have 36 employees. Mostly our main thing is still sales from the website. So that's actually another thing for other farmers to learn too. And among my other millions of jobs, I was a web designer. And then so when e-commerce started to happen, I was right there ready to do it. And it was very hard. And actually, rural people were fine. It was people like, I live in New York City. There's no way I'm buying beans through the mail. Well, they do now. Well, there's more stores that carry them. But we carry about 1,000 accounts. We're not really working with distributors. We have one that we're toying around with. So we sell directly to our accounts. We have the retail store, and then we have the Bean Club. And, here in Napa, everybody has a wine club. And I remember hearing about a mediocre winery starting a new wine club, and everyone was all excited. I'm thinking, who needs another stupid wine club? You would be so idiotic. Let's do a bean club. It would be so funny. And we did it as a joke, just because there were so many wine clubs. So it started, with a couple people. And right now we're at 30,000 members. So 4 times a year, we send out 30,000 boxes. And normally we send out a couple hundred a day, but then the company has to stop 4 times a year as we prep for Bean Club. And they've really got it down to a science now. And the waiting list to get on it is 35,000 people right now. And people just say, well, why don't you just open it up? Money's sitting on the table. But you know what? We're doing really well at 30,000. And I guess I'm a bad capitalist, but if the capitalism is the system we have, how do I do it the best way? And for me, I don't want a box that has to be diluted so that we can chase more dollars. I'd rather have, like when we design what's in the box and we do the newsletter and even designing the box, I think, what would a bean freak get really excited about? I want them to open it and start smiling and think about all the dishes they're going to make, which is me. So I really try and market to myself. What would I want? And if we started having stupider beans in order to make more money, I wouldn't do that. But we're doing okay. So I don't feel the need to sell myself out. I still may. No, I shouldn't say that out loud, but who knows? But for now, we're doing really great. And it just seems, there's that, what do you call it? Grateful Dead marketing. It's like, there are people who volunteered to travel on your bus with you. So those are the first people you should go after rather than the ones who are listening to some other kind of music. So make those people happy and the whole thing, they become your evangelists. And you can carry this through into food too, very easily. So figure out who your freaks are, really appeal to them, and then let them be your evangelists. So like, for example, we have a group on Facebook of the bean. You have to be in the bean club. We won't let you in unless you are. But of the 30,000, about 10,000 are in it, which is pretty high and is very active. And it's the nicest place on the internet. All they do is share recipes and talk about their beans. It's really great. And once in a while, I'll say, okay, does someone have a bean you're stuck with that you don't know what to do, how to cook it or what to do with it once it's cooked? And I just sit back and let them help each other. It's really wonderful.
It's amazing. And I think it's hard to capture just how enthusiastic these bean freaks are, right? Like I have read that there are people who are asking if they can pass their membership on when they die to their heirs. Is that right?
Yes, very much. And one woman said she put it on her Tinder profile and it was very helpful. And yes, no. And just yesterday, now that we have the store, I was up in my office and the staff called and said, you need to come down. There's some people that really would love to meet you. And I don't mind doing that. And so I come down and it was like they were meeting Mick Jagger, which is so funny because it's like, you do get to see me. It's like, I'm not that way. So anyway, it was really adorable. And so I take selfies and sign their books. It's really cute. That's another reason not to dilute the Bean Club, because you disappoint someone like that who is in Napa and you think the last thing they're going to do is go taste beans, because we do have samples, but that's the first thing they did. So I want to make sure that person that comes in is still happy.
I mean, it's incredible. As you reflect on that, what do you attribute that magic to? Because that's more than just beans. It's more than having a club. It's more than just having really, really great beans, I would think. There's something else there that's magical. As you reflect on that, what comes to mind?
Well, my problem is I don't reflect a whole lot. I'm just doing it because we're doing so well. I just feel like you prepare your whole life, then all of a sudden opportunity provides itself and you have to run through that door as fast as you can before it shuts closed. So I feel that's where we're at. And it sounds, just don't be a jerk. I don't overpay you, pay your people what they're worth. You respect your customer and you're lucky. I mean, those are all the things, the elements you need, I think.
And I mean, beans have so many great qualities about them. I mean, on top of health and being kind of a indigenous American food and being delicious and versatile, they also, are very storable and easily shipped around the country. But I think that probably early on, it seemed crazy that, the internet would be your number one sales for something like this. Is that?
Well, see, I love the control, about imposing my taste. I knew if they're sitting on a shelf, why are these beans $6 and the others are $3? And, go to a helpful Whole Foods clerk to explain it. They couldn't. But whereas I can tell the story, like these beans we found in this market, in this country, and I love them because I do this, and you might like this. And then you can tell the story and you control the narrative in a way that doing it only wholesale can't. And, I think, some of the farmers that you deal with must deal with this too. We sort of dipped our toes in the distribution game and it's so corrupt. I can't even, everybody makes money, but the person providing the product, it's just awful. Like we went to one distributor because, and Whole Foods is a great store, but it's not the only store. And this whole, you have to do everything you can to get into Whole Foods. So you have to do a free fill. And I'm like, I'm not sure what that is, but I'm pretty sure the answer is no. And it's like, where you fill it for free. And if it sells, they'll reorder. It's like, well, between the distributor, Whole Foods, and me, I'm the one who can least afford that. So if you don't like them, don't get them. Then they want to go on sale. Like at Whole Foods, they have those, yellow tags so that Prime members get a discount. And I said, people aren't, my people anyway, aren't going to buy the beans because they're 15 cents off. They're going to buy them because they want them. So I don't see any value. So in 25 years, we've never discounted the beans once, except for a week ago Friday when we were moving. We had our first ever sale in 25 years when we gave everything 25% off, so we didn't have to move it to the new store. So I would say know your value and then just stick to it. It's like, they're not for everybody. That's okay. And that just pisses people off so much. And they're like, okay, fine, I'll get them. And but they are. We're kind of the coolest kids on the playground, and you can play with us, but we're not going to beg you to. That should be your attitude, I think, and that's easy to say now. But I know what it's like in the beginning, and you've got someone like, you give me a discount or one free, I'll buy four, and I get five. And you think, at one point, I remember thinking, no, this is the price. It's a fair price, and we just don't discount it. So for me, that was a relief. Also, early on, we were told by a company they wanted to make frozen enchiladas using our beans. And it didn't feel right, and I didn't know why. And I thought, no, you know what we do? We provide ingredients for cooks, home cooks and professional cooks. That's what we do. So I don't need to get into convenience food. And maybe it was a stupid thing, but it was a relief to define, this is what we do. And I don't have to spin my wheels worrying about some deal that probably wouldn't have gone well. I can't imagine a frozen food other than frozen pizza that people just, I've got to have it. It just didn't feel like a good idea. And that's our decision. People may say that you're crazy, your money's sitting on the table, but there's so many things sitting on the table that it's just a relief to define who you are, so you don't have to consider things that just seem so outside the norm.
So true. And where did the name Rancho Gordo come from?
This is so funny. And again, it's like, just like the Bean Club is, brilliant marketing. It's smart because people can say it. Like, they're not saying Huarache Loco or it's, Rancho Gordo, I'm speaking Spanish. I mean, everybody can do it, even if they don't speak Spanish. But I actually, in the early days of the internet, thought, I'm going to prove you can lose weight eating Mexican food, which I'm not Mexican, but I love Mexican food. And I'm going to call it Rancho Grande. And so I went, and of course it was taken. El Rancho Grande was taken. And I just thought, I'll just do El Rancho Gordo or Rancho Gordo. And I just was parking it until I started growing. It's like, well, Rancho, I live, it's sort of, let's just do that. So that's the brilliant marketing. That it was not. It was circumstances. Yeah. I think that is true, though. You have to recognize which circumstances are the right ones. That's really an art. And I know if you're a farmer, it's like, I'm just trying to deal with the price of, soil amendments or seed stock or whatever. But maybe there's someone in the, I was going to say, though, in Mexico, we're so big now in the villages where we're buying the beans, they do co-ops. So all the neighbors get together and grow the same bean. And I keep thinking maybe that's a way for smaller American farmers to compete, is by doing some sort of co-op, especially as now I just heard one of the packing houses for fruit in California that's been there for 100 years is closing. And it's just getting worse. So how do you make it better? To me, it would be specialty crops and direct to consumer, but I don't know if it's enough to do. And the hard part, I know, with farmers markets now, when I started out, there weren't that many, or there were many, but there weren't that many regionally. And now every chamber of commerce wants a stupid little farmers market, and they don't care if you make any money, but for you to get up at dawn, pack your stuff, drive 2 hours, sit in the sun, and have people haggle over the price, it's heartbreaking. But if you grew puntarella, I think it's called, this great bitter chicory that is, you have to find that one thing that every chef wants that no one's doing, or every chef doesn't even know he wants, that you could own that. And you could actually pre-sell it and not even have to go to market. You could say, no, we've got it, but you have to do our CSA, or the chef has to order it.
Yeah. And you have numerous kind of revenue streams now, but if you wanted to only do the Bean Club, is that a viable business model on its own?
Now, but I think it's also because of all the other stuff. So in the early 80s, I worked at Esprit, the clothing company, and the Esprit line was very hot and really fashion forward. But what really sold were the logo sweatshirts that said Esprit. And sometimes if they had a rainbow logo, they'd sell like crazy. But they only sold because of the designer line. So I always think sometimes things are loss leaders and you just have to live with them, because it's because of the loss leader that they're buying the pinto beans. It's because of the Rio Zape that someone buys black beans from us. So it's like advertising almost sometimes, is what I would say.
And how about on kind of like demand planning? Because I know you've got a whole section of your website that's like waitlist beans. So these are all the beans that are sold out, because you do try to sell new crop beans within the last 2 years. You've got a whole list of beans. Hey, these are sold out, but you can get on a wait list next time we have them. But with, I don't know how many different varieties you have. I imagine 50 or so varieties. How do you coordinate the supply and demand in any given year?
Well, I think our customer uniquely understands they're a crop. They're not just something you push a button and the distributor sends them to you. our customer gets that. So we plant in the spring, harvest in the late fall, and then we have to mill them. And that's when they become available. But then we hold them for big days. So we have a big Christmas release. We'll have a spring release on the 26th, I think. And then sometimes we have some things that just have come in. We'll do a little something in the summer. But it's like 3 times a year we do big releases. So, and our customers trained that it's a vegetable. We also had, people, it's a vegetable and sometimes you get bugs in them. And that was a nightmare. But we've done something very clever and everyone can copy us. I don't care. We bought a big shipping container and it's refrigerated. It's a freezer now. And so as the beans come in to us, they sit there for 5 to 7 days. I'm not sure which day it is to freeze the beans. So we don't have any bugs entering the pristine warehouse now, because that was an issue, especially with beans that were coming from other countries. As we have one bean that comes from Poland and they say they fumigate them at their end. We'll fumigate them at our end and they still have bugs. So this seems like a great, happy, non-harmful way of dealing with that.
When they arrive in Napa, are they arriving in sacks in bulk, or what's that look like? How do they get from the farm to you?
It depends. I mean, they go from the farm to be milled, and then from the milled, usually in those big 2,000
totes.
The handle totes. Thank you. That's the word I'm looking for. And then we get them in that stage. Then we have a machine that we call the Beast, and it is Italian, and the beans go in a hopper. It actually creates the bag on the fly, and then actually does the labels and seals them, and it even laser prints the date, the Best By date on them, which we were the first people ever anywhere to do a Best By date on a bean. They didn't have them before. That's one thing I'll brag about. Yeah.
It was just considered that if it was a dry bean, it's good.
And on some level it is. You can still cook it, but they do degrade, especially after about 2 years is sort of the sweet spot. But I've had them when they're too fresh. It's like, oh, they taste nice. And they dry another 6 months. It's like, oh, this is the bean I want. So it's interesting. They develop, which is also why I never eat green beans, because I feel like it's infanticide a little bit. You're eating them too young. They haven't had a chance to become fabulous beans. So,
well, I'm going to encourage everyone to go watch your videos, your bean cooking videos, because they're great on YouTube. And it's I don't know, it makes me want to cook a pot of beans, because it looks like you're having fun. I mean, it genuinely looks like you're having fun. It's not an act.
Oh, good. No, and it isn't. And, that's the beauty of getting more successful and getting bigger, is all the things I hate, like, what is a margin? It's like, really, I don't care. I just really want people to buy more beans, and our beans in particular. So as we get bigger, we can hire more people to do that kind of thing to make sure that we're a valid company. And I really think I'm more of a marketer than a farmer, or I'm not a farmer for sure, or even a business person. But at the same time, I think somehow my instincts were okay for us to last this long with such a weird product. I mean, in 2001, to say if you were to write a business plan, it's like, oh, we're going to do heirloom beans. It's idiotic. So I wouldn't be discouraged. And if you have young farmers, I'd also say, I started when I was 40. So I had a whole million other careers before I landed on this. So the story's not over till it's over. Because I remember being frustrated, like, what am I going to do? Why can't I catch a break? But just keep becoming more interesting and educated. And sooner or later, I think it happens if you're lucky.
And yeah, I mean, not a lot of people have the commitment to go as deep into, the history and the culture and the health, but then also the operations. I mean, there's a lot of layers to it. That's one of the reasons I was excited to get you on the show.
Yeah, no, it is. And, and then there's humans. So there's also, I will tell you, the false economy of paying people very little money so that you can save money, but because you have to keep rehiring them. Either they cheat or steal from you, or they leave and you have to hire someone else and retrain them. I think if you can't pay them what they're worth, you don't really have a valid business plan, I would say. So we're in a luxurious position now. We start everybody at $20. Like if you push a broom in the warehouse, you're making $20. But we just celebrated 15 years with one warehouse worker. People just don't leave. And there's money in that because you don't have to retrain somebody, and they know your product and they're committed to your customer. And we have a lot of workers who just cannot believe that we're selling beans, and they are so proud of it because it's not sunglasses from China. It's something really good.
Well, beans are obviously very unique, and this isn't just like, hey, we're going to take our model and do the same thing in other crops. But I do wonder, are there any other sort of heirloom foods that you're like, I wish somebody would create the Rancho Gordo of, potatoes. I'm in Idaho, so I think about potatoes a lot. But anything like that?
But see, that's where the money would be, is like if you did heirloom. I mean, aren't there 200 varieties of potatoes?
Yeah, I mean, if you go down to Peru, there's like 1,000, I think. Yeah.
So find those and which ones work up here. And then can you make great potato chips? I mean, the fact that, the big guys determine what potato we should use. But I think the real money is in finding out what is really great and appeal to foodies rather than commodity people. There's a marketing guy, Seth Godin, and he talks about there's the big wave. So if you want to be in on organic food, now you have to be huge. You have to spend millions of dollars in advertising and marketing and all this stuff. But then he talks about the tail of the wave, and the tail's really long, and you can actually make money appealing to your tribe rather than trying to chase the broader audience. So you want to do narrow casting rather than broadcasting. And you find your tribe and let them do your marketing for you. I love advertising, and I would love graphics, and I would have loved to have done more, but it never has worked. So we've done it 4 or 5 times. So we don't do any Facebook advertising. We don't do Google AdWords. We do nothing. People use Rancho Gordo now for a Google AdWord to get people to their sites, but we've never done it. And I think Guy Kawasaki is another marketing guy. And someone said, how do you deal with Google placement? And he said, write good merd. I mean, that's the secret. It's just have good stuff on your website and Google will find you. And that's the number one content thing. But, for another crop, though, I will say, I would love if someone did field peas, like black-eyed peas, Crowder peas, zipper creams. We're doing it, but I would love to help someone else to do that and make it. Because that really, especially in the South, has such great history, and I just think it's a good opportunity because Southerners love them. So you almost have this built-in market, although they really prefer them frozen. They like to pick them fresh and freeze them to cook them, but dried ones are great. And I think Northerners would be interested in this kind of cool product that really has history. So that's what I would do if I were starting over.
Yeah.
Maybe.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
But it's good. And herbs are great things too. Herbs are white hot. There's that great company, Burlap and Barrel. They're friends of mine that go all over the world, but I can't imagine we couldn't do really incredible oregano if we learned how to dry it properly. There are some Mexican herbs like epazote that no one's doing properly. I think there are a lot of opportunities.
I do too, and I regularly have conversations with farmers that are like, what's working? Because even some of them that do have a farmers market presence, like you said, feel like they're getting sort of beat down. And then, of course, anything in the large commodity space right now, there's almost nothing that's making any money. So people are looking for where are opportunities, but it takes a whole different skill set. That's what I'm realizing. I mean, your skill set, your magic is not something that most people have. But I think on the marketing, one thing that is interesting is if you type in Rancho Gordo, like on YouTube, you get other people who are Rancho Gordo fans that are posting content for you. And that's where things really seem to kind of go vertical, because you're having your advocates, your bean freaks, as you call them, kind of do the work for you. And I mean, I know we talked a little bit about this earlier, but like, what do you think causes that? Because you almost never see that in food. I mean, nobody's doing that in food.
Well, and also I keep thinking, when's the negative stuff coming? Because you've seen really good people suddenly get crucified online. And it's like, people just have the warm and fuzzies for us. And I just think it goes back to don't be a jerk kind of, and I think also the beans are lucky because it's always like this discovery every pot. Like I still get a kick when I finish the pot. It's like, oh, it worked again, even for all these years. So I think every time you do, you have that and you want to tell people about it. Like I did this amazing thing. And I prefer much simpler things. Like I think great beans, killer olive oil, and fabulous bread is my idea of a good time. But a lot of people want to do much more fussy things, and they can do that. So beans are basically your paints, and you can figure out what your painting is going to be from them. And I think everybody wants to impose their taste on others a little bit, maybe.
And all of your varieties, like on your website, most of them I had never heard of before finding Rancho Gordo. The names of all those, are those the names that, the farmers use, or is there any kind of branding and marketing that Rancho Gordo does? Like, this is what we call them because, we're sort of like creating a unique product here.
No, the one time I did something wrong, I will never do again. We grew, it's similar to the Corona bean, but it was called Runner Cannellini, which also is a misnomer. It wasn't the right name. And
those are like big white beans. Yeah.
Yeah. And one year, the crop, just something happened and they were smaller and I don't know what to do. And so I said, let's just call them Cellini. I had just read a book by Benvenuto Cellini. He was an Italian silversmith who had his wild story. So we'll just call them Cellini beans. And then that Saturday at the farmer's market, this woman said, "Oh my God, you've got Cellini beans. I haven't seen these since I was a student in Florence." And I thought, okay, I'm going to go to hell. I'm never doing this again. So I haven't done it again. So these are the real names of the beans. Because I felt horrible for her. It's like, no, you didn't, lady. And what we call Buckeye, they're from Montana, and it's a very short season bean. And they originally were called Yellow Indian Woman. And we had a couple of restaurants like, I won't buy those. That name is so offensive. I said, well, the bean's yellow, so it's not talking about a woman and whatever. So, but they were also known as Buckeye. So we did make a conscious effort to call them Buckeyes.
Okay. So it wasn't you naming them Buckeye. You chose a different.
We just chose which name we're going to market. Yeah.
Huh. Well, what's next? You've got this new retail store here in Napa, which I love to visit. My parents still live in Sonoma County, so next time I'm home, I'm going to shoot over there and go visit it. And obviously the Bean Club, I'm on the list of 35,000 people. I don't know if we'll ever get to me, but I'm on there now. I think one thing that I didn't realize, and maybe other people don't either, when I first heard your story, I'm like, oh, I can't get Rancho Gordo beans because there's no way I'm ever going to be part of the club. It's like, you just go online and order them. They're available. You're just not in the club.
The club gets a few exclusive things, but not enough if it's a lot of beans, and a lot of people come on and like, I can't keep up. It's like, but it's not for everybody. But the other people, it's like they actually order more other than what they're in. So those are who it's for, really. But you can definitely just order them online. The bean book with 10 Speed was on the New York Times bestseller list, and we were nominated for a James Beard Award, which we lost. But we've just signed a contract with Norton. We're doing the lentil book next, but that's going to be probably 2 or 3 years before it comes out. So that is the big thing. And I don't know, I feel like we've had the revolution. So now it's time to maybe evolution to figure out how this thing goes next. Every time I think, okay, we can relax and exhale, there's some young person who comes in and is like, why would I even cook beans? They're in a can. It's like, okay, here we go. So we've still got a lot of work to do.
We do, yeah. And I don't know if it was from you or elsewhere where I had learned about the amount of pounds that an average American eats of beans. It's very low compared to any type of comparable food. So there's still a lot of room.
And then it's even worse than that because that's the average. I mean, and people like me are eating probably a pound a week. So we're really skewing the average. So it's probably even less, which is not good.
Well, congratulations on all your success, Steve. I really appreciate you taking the time here. Like I said, huge fan. I actually have a shipment of Rancho Gordo on my way that I ordered on the website. Encourage other people to do the same. I also think your story is really inspiring for those of us who are kind of agriculture entrepreneurs who are like, boy, I'd sure like to find my equivalent of bean freaks, right? My like raving fans that I can continue to surprise and delight over the course of 25 years. That's a really, really cool thing. I know you don't reflect much, but I hope you're very happy and proud of what you built. It's pretty cool.
And I also appreciate how lucky I am. There's a lot of people that work hard and are smart, and it doesn't happen. So I totally am appreciative. Like, this worked. This is great.
Well, that was really a treat for me. I hope you enjoyed that interview at least half as much as I did. Thank you very much to Steve Sando for being on the show. I also need to mention that Steve is an author of multiple books. The latest is The Bean Book, 100 Recipes for Cooking with All Kinds of Beans. I originally thought to bring Steve on the show because I've had another book of his, Heirloom Beans, for probably well over a decade by now. And anyway, he's just great for those of us who are bean freaks, but also great to hear from for any of us in agriculture, thinking about markets, about creating value, about serving customers, because in the current commodity cycle, I think there's a lot of people wondering if there are better models out there. And Steve really has pioneered an interesting model with his e-commerce and, of course, his bean club and his various ventures that go along with that. Make sure you go check out their website, which is just ranchogordo.com. I'll put a link for it in the show notes. Really appreciate Steve once again coming on the show. Last but never least, thank you for your time and your attention. I do not take it lightly. I'll be back next week with another story of ag innovation.